How's it going, and welcome to The Guitar Effect. My name's Rob. In this video, it's going to be the first of two that I'm making where I'm going to talk about my new gigging compact pedal board, right? So before I do, as always, I'll ask you to please like and subscribe and hit the notifications bell too, so you can get up to date every time I put out a new video. So what am I talking about? The new pedal board. So I'm playing 2 to 3 bands at any one time. At the moment, 2, soon to be 3. And those bands, in some of them I'm the guitar player, some of them I'm the singer and guitar player, and some of them I'm one guitar player, and some of them I'm one of 2 guitar players. So there are lots of different requirements in those bands for the way that I want my gear to work. Some of them I need to play direct, as in, either with some sort of monitoring solution on stage, but mainly getting my main sound going to front of house through an amp sim. Some of them I just rock up to a multi-band night where there's a load of local bands that play originals. There might be any manner of amp on stage at that gig that's a house amp, and I want to just be able to plug into that and be able to take a decent clean sound of some sort and then run all my pedals into it. Some of them I'm bringing my own amp with me, and I might set that kind of differently again. So I need one pedal board for all those situations. It's going to work really well. And also, a lot of the time I'm going to be like going in and out of a venue kind of quick and dirty. I want one guitar on my back and I want one easy to manage size pedal board. So I've had this need for a while, and I've tried various different combinations of things. And I have found the current setup that I have is working particularly well, really. So what I'm going to do is throw this pedal board up on screen now and just talk through what it is. Okay, so here's some nice photos of the pedal board in question. Okay, so as you can see, the HXFX is on there. The HXFX has been my kind of multi-effect unit of choice for about 2 years now. And I think I know this unit pretty much inside out at this stage. Certainly in terms of its functionality. I don't think I'll ever know what the full sonic capability of it is because it's just so much. So I have the HX effects for all my modulation, compression, even synth simulation. I have all my time and reverb and delay bass effects coming off it, all my pitch effects coming off it. And then it has 2 effects loop. In one effects loop, I have the OD200 by Boss, which I'm using for all of my overdrive, distortion and fuzz sounds. And then I have, in the other loop, I have the preamp part of the IR200 by Boss, and I'm using that for all my amp modeling. Then I'm running a MIDI cable from the HXFX into the OD200, then from the OD200 into the IR200, and then every time I switch a patch on the HXFX, it brings up a different preset on both the IR200 and the OD200, allowing me to customize what's happening in those 2 units when I hit a different patch or make a control selection from the HXFX, which means that everything that changes on the HXFX, which is what I need to happen. Then at the end of the board, you'll see a Boss RC5 looper. I use that with my original band, play all my original band's backing tracks. So what's happening there is the left and right output come out. On the left are the backing tracks, and on the right is a click track. The backing tracks go to the front of house to augment the sound of our band. And the click track goes to the front of house, and then part of the drummer's in-ear mix that he gets at the back of the stage. So that looper pedal is literally like the keyboard player, the drum machine, sometimes the strings, whatever the supplementary instruments in our bands are. So that's a really, really crucial part of my original band sound, and that's on the board too. Obviously then power is a big consideration, and the K-line power supply that you can see at the back of the board there, the blue one, has enough power to power everything, which is amazing because I think it was about €40, and it powers everything completely silently, which is just really amazing. So yeah, that's the whole board. So there you go. That's the actual pedal board, right? There's a lot to get through in these 2 videos because this pedal board can do a lot of stuff. So what I'm going to do first is the way it's wired is really crucial to get it to work in the way I want it to work. And I think it's really worth explaining how it's wired. So what I've done is I've made a diagram of how it's wired, and I'm going to throw that up on screen and talk through the wiring, because if anybody wants to copy this pedal board, it'll only work if the wiring is done correctly. I'm going to stick the diagram up on screen now and talk you through how it's wired. Right. So the main reason I've put this diagram together is because the way you connect everything up is actually crucial to getting the most out of the setup. The first thing to look at here is the HX effects, which is obviously the brains of the whole pedal board. It's where all my modulation, delay, pitch, reverb, some overdrives, compression, everything like that comes from. So the first thing we need to do is connect the OD200. So what happens here is basically in effects loop 1, effects loop send gets sent to the OD200's input and the effects loop return gets sent to the OD200's output. It's really simple in that way. Basically you put the OD200 in effects loop 1 of the HX effect. Then for the IR200 it's a little bit more complicated. From effects loop 2 I want to be able to put the preamp part of the IR200 into effects loop 2 and then take the output after all the effects come after the preamp of the IR200 and put them back into the output section of the IR200. And how I do that is I take the effects send from the HX effects from effects loop 2 and plug it into the IR200 input. Then I take the return from the HX effects loop 2 and plug it into the IR200 effects send on the back of the pedal. Then I take the output, in this case output 2, of the HX effects and I plug it into the effects loop return on the back of the IR200 and that places everything in the correct signal chain, okay? So the next thing I want to do is just plug in the expression pedal and that's really simple. So I get the expression pedal and I plug it into, in my case, expression. There's 2 foot switch jacks. They can both take a 2-button foot switch or an expression pedal. I'm using expression pedal 1. It's just one stereo cable that goes from the expression pedal into the HX effects, really simple. The next thing I want to do, which is really important, is run all the MIDI cables. The first yellow cable that comes out of the HX effects goes out of the HX effects into the OD200. Then you use another, and basically the HX effects has a regular size MIDI jack and a 5-pin MIDI jack, that is. The OD200 has a mini MIDI jack that's like a headphone socket, like a small headphone socket. So you get an adapter cable that goes from large MIDI to 1/8" MIDI and you plug that into the OD200. Then you can just get regular 1/8" cables to 1/8" cables to go from the OD200 MIDI out to the IR200 MIDI in, and then another one of those to go from the IR200 MIDI out to the RC5 MIDI in. What this effectively means is I can control what preset and what continuous controller message I want to send from the HX effects every time I hit a foot switch, should I desire, to the OD200, the IR200 and the RC5. I can get them to do whatever I want anytime I hit one switch on the HX effects. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do then is plug in the RC5. So the RC5, as I mentioned earlier, plays backing tracks. Click on one side, track on the other. They literally go out of the 2 outputs into the 2 inputs of the DI box. And then the front of house gives me 2 cables, 2 XLR cables, both go into the desk. The click, which comes from one side of the RC5, goes direct to the drummer's in-ear mix. And he clicks us in. And then the front of house tracks go both to his in-ears and to the front of house. So it's really, really simple. Okay, and then the last thing you need to do, right now this pedal board is currently completely wired up. The last thing you need to do is plug in the peripherals. So like plug your guitar into the guitar input, plug the output 1 into the input of your stage monitoring amplifier, plug the IR, this is really important. At this point, the IR200's left output will go to the desk and that will give you a perfectly processed direct sound. And then obviously, as I mentioned before, the 2 cables, XLR cables, go to the desk. And that's the whole rig completely set up. So there you go. I think you can see that the way that the IR200 is integrated into HX effects. What's amazing about that is it allows me to tap the signal at one point from the HX effects for this cover stuff, where the preamp can go out to an amp but without the speaker simulation. So I can use an amp on stage, say the effects return of any amp at all, bypass the preamp, plug that in, you've got preamp sounds going to it for monitoring on stage, doesn't go to the PA, and then you have another tap from the IR200 which goes straight into the desk and I get all my front of house sounds that way. Really amazing, but you can't do it if you don't wire it correctly. So yeah, I think I've explained how it's wired. So the next thing to do is to take a look at some sounds. Now this is where the 2 videos thing comes into play. This video would be on for an hour and a half if I was to explain the two different types of sound, like situations that I'm currently using it in. So I'm going to start in this video with the really basic sounds, which are the kind of cover sounds, in which case it's sort of operating like a stomp box based pedal board. You'll see what I mean now. So let's get into the audio examples now. Okay, so getting into the audio demo part of it now, as I've just gone through the way it's all set up, okay? As I mentioned, the DT25 is in the room and it's being picked up by the room mic, which is just off camera here. And the sound from the IR200 is going straight into the interface. So what I'm going to do is just show you for a second. This is the sound of the clean patch through the IR200 straight into the interface. Now, the same thing as the sound that I would hear on stage, which is through the DT25. Okay, so the great thing about that is obviously that because the DT25 has this ability to turn off all the preamps and just leave on the speaker simulation, what's happening there is the preamp, as I mentioned in the audio or in the visual description basically of how the patch is set up, the preamp of the IR200 is going out the output without the speaker simulation straight into the DT25 for my live on stage sound. It's not going anywhere near the PA. Okay, so then getting into the sounds of the patches. So the way I do this when I'm using it actually in real life is I pick whichever sound, right? So clean, dirty, crunchy lead is going to work best for the song I'm about to play, right? So how I do that is, if I'm playing a clean song, I hit these, if I'm playing a clean song, I hit the mode switch, which brings me into this mode where it turns individual patches on and off. So if I'm playing like a purely clean passage, for example, say I might turn on a chorus pedal for something that sounds kind of sweet. Okay, and then I might be playing something that requires like a clean part but then with a little bit of a boost, so bring in the drive pedal. Or I might be playing the drive pedal and then want the boost off the IR200, so I just hit this switch. And what that does is it gives me the boost and the drive remotely operable from the HX effects. If at any point I'm playing, I'll give you this example again. I want to get to a fluid lead sound, I can hit this lead switch, which I showed you in the visual description, is turning on a full tone LCD clone. It sounds this. And then I can turn it off. So it all operates like individual stomp boxes, okay? And then I have an Adriatic delay, which is kind of a modulated delay kind of thing for one or two songs. And then I have a tremolo for just that one song of the Chris Eyes, I think. So that's everything that happens in the clean patch. I've atmosphere with the delay and tremolo. I've kind of got modulation with the chorus, and I've got various overdrive options to play the other parts of the song that might be predominantly rooted and clean. Okay, then when I switch over to the dirty patch, you can see here on the IR200 it changes to number 2, dirty, which is like a slightly driven tweed combo. And I use this for kind of the punk rock sort of slightly broken up, sort of aggressive playing stuff. So okay, or I use it for kind of chucky kind of strumming stuff. So if I go into the mode switch on that to go into individual stomp boxes, we have a lot of different stuff on this. This is the place where I spend most of the gig. So I have obviously the drive pedal, which in this case is a clon. No drive. Turns on a clon. And I have the lead switch again. Again, that just brings in that OCD and a little bit of delay. I have the 70s chorus for playing the Queen song, Under Pressure. Few interesting effects here. I have the pitch whammy and the slap echo, which combine to do that Black Keys song, Lonely Boy. So that's when I turn off the whammy and just turn on the drive. What's great about this is, again, still getting the monitoring of the amp in the room and recording the audio, which will be going out to the front of house. All works great. So that's then I also use this for kind of U2 stuff. So I switch to the middle setting on the guitar, turn on the mod chorus echo, and also turn the expression pedal up full, which raises the delay mix up for those U2 kind of sounds. Come to the verse part, I lower it down a bit. Works great. Okay, so the last patch I use is a crunch patch. I do actually have a lead patch set up, but to be honest with you, I'm never in a situation where I'm switching just out here in preset mode. I'm always playing within a patch, so I never go to the lead. I use the lead switch within the patch. So crunch switches on the IR200 to a heavier or a dirtier tweed, basically. Which works great. So if I go into this, I have a few different things in here. I have a kinky boost if I want to make that louder. I have a drive. Again, it's just a clon. Again, I have the lead switch, which I have to get the level sorted out on. And then I have an analog echo and a rotary. So mainly when I'm in here, I don't have any of those effects on. I might have the drive on for some really heavy parts. Turn off the drive, roll down the volume slightly. Turn on the echo. That's kind of the heaviest song we play, so that's kind of where I would be for that. And they're the different patches I use, and as you can see, the MIDI switching capability, right, of being able to like go to a different core sound for the different sounds I need, so the clean sound, the dirty sound, or the heavy sound, are invaluable because it gives me a starting place for every single song. And then, as I mentioned, because I'm not singing in this band, I can spend time doing a certain amount really of tap dancing to get between the different sounds I need. And so it's set up that way, but it's still, as I switch from sound to sound, it changes the IR200 to the relevant preset, which makes a lot of the overdrive sounds I have come from the amp model, which in this case suits me the best way. So in the other video I'm going to make, I'll show you how I use it in a completely different way, where I don't use any tap dancing at all. Everything is done with snapshots. But for the kind of covers band, really basic scenario, for such a compact pedal board, it can do a hell of a lot, both the front of house and for monitoring in the room. So there you go. Part one, the setup, so explaining the board, using the diagram to explain the wiring, and then, you know, showing the audio examples. I think you can see that in a simple covers band situation, the dual outputs, one to your monitor for on stage if you need that, unless you're using in-ears, and then one that goes out to the front of house with all the speaker simulation and everything, really makes this board super versatile in that respect. And then the MIDI switching between being able to turn on and off things on the IR200 and the OD200 from the HX effects means it's super flexible. So there you go. I'll be getting into way more complex workings of how this pedal board allows me to execute what I need to do in the originals band, where I also need to sing, and so I just need to be able to sing and put on a show and then hit one switch to change a load of things, and also have that set up in a way that's really intuitive, so I don't have to think about it, which this pedal board really allows me to do brilliantly. So that'll be coming up in the next video next week, so stay tuned for that. And if you've enjoyed this video and if you've watched this far, I thank you very much, and hopefully I will see you in another video again soon. Please like and subscribe, and you can be kept up to date every time I put something new out. And yeah, throw any comments or questions down below. I'll be happy to answer them, and I'll see you in another video again soon. Cheers. Bye bye.